THESTRANGER, which is also MA rated. All three movies today so far have been. 117 minutes, based on fact. A really grim story of endeavour and perseverance set in the year 2010. Hardly a conventional police procedural. Paul, played by Steve Mazarkas, meets a dishevelled ex-con, Henry Teague, Sean Harris, on a bus. The former is talkative. The latter is not. So Paul talks, Henry doesn't say much. But Henry ends up doing Paul a favour. In turn, Paul wants to repay Henry's kindness and sets him up for a job with his employer. It's clear at this point that the job is not above board. Henry makes it clear that he does not do violence. Paul hooks Henry up with Mark, played by Joel Edgerton, who schools him on the requirements of the organisation they work for. The number one rule is complete transparency, regardless of their past. Henry recognises there's money to be made here, and over time is introduced to the man running the show, whose name is John, played by Alan Dukes. I've deliberately been evasive in plot. I do not want to spoil the surprise. I don't want to give the game away, but let me add, there's a lot more going on here than at first meets the eye. It's written and directed by Thomas M. Wright. It's tense, it's bleak throughout. So many characters in this movie are seemingly all but permanently on edge, and they do well to seek psychological counselling. Sense of dread permeates the film. I was really impressed. The grittiness, knockout performances from Joel Edgerton, Sean Harris and Jada Alberts, and I'll talk about her a bit more. But Edgerton plays really tightly wound with distinction. Even when he buys a new set of clothes, Harris looks like an unmade bed, and his insularity, his vacant look, help make Henry Teague creepy, and Albert's frustrations as Detective Rylett are on full display. There's a chilling authenticity about this movie, The Stranger. Edgerton started developing the project after reading the book The Sting by Kate Kariakou, which sheds light on a remarkably painstaking operation. I reckon Wright & Co. have done it justice on film with their gloomy approach to the material. Soundscape, really powerful and evocative, and I speak particularly of the natural sound used in this production. Cinematography by Sam Chiplin is dark and foreboding. Is it not, Peter?
It definitely is. The air of tension in this film is palpable, and what really impressed me about this film is the very careful character creation and the police operation that is part of this film. Thomas M. Wright is such a good director. I mean, his film Acute Misfortune about the artist Adam Cullen was just a superb evocation of that sort of psychological tension and drama and issues related to that artist. In this case, The Stranger, or The Unknown Man, as the film was going to be called at one stage. When I spoke to Thomas about that, he said that they used that as a working title, but then they reverted to The Stranger when another film with that title disappeared. So The Stranger is there. Look, excellent procedural film, undercover police work. The roles of Joel Edgerton and Sean Harris are just absolutely superb in the way that they represent these very tense roles. The idea of Joel Edgerton also being quite concerned because he has a son in this film, and there are issues about the actual kidnapping and murder that the film is based on that could permeate his own situation. Look, there is so much to admire and enjoy about this, or appreciate about this Australian film. I was very impressed.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's the dialogue is sparse, and you really have to concentrate because there's a lot of deliberate mumbling in the delivery of lines, Greg, isn't there?
It is, and it's a very bleak, grim film, I thought. But look, Australian filmmakers seem to be fascinated with these true crime stories. Films like Snowtown, Chopper, Nitram have all been dark, bleak films too, exploring violence and the psychology of these criminals there. And this one does the same thing there. I think that Thomas M. Wright here, as he did with Acute Misfortune, has employed an impressionistic approach to the material that doesn't always come off there. As you said, it's very bleak and dark. The cinematography is gloomy. A lot of the scenes take place at night. And the relationship between Mark and Henry here is quite uneasy, but I thought it did. Joel Edgerton and Sean Harris did a good job of conveying that tension there. You've got the contrast between the two men, one a remorseless killer, the other a decent cop, but both living a lie here. And as Peter referenced there, Mark is also juggling the demands of his job here and dealing with all these horrible crimes and everything, with that of being a single father, raising his young son and trying to cope with the emotional and psychological toll of undercover work there. And I thought Edgerton portrayed the stress of this duality really well there. There's a rawness to the film as permeated by a creepy sense of dread and unease, as you've said there. And the dark and brooding cinematography from Sam Chiplin does add to that brooding tone there. The visuals are deliberately bleak and stylish, and the disjointed editing technique here is also jarring with its abrupt cuts and everything, which further heightens the unsettling mood. Look, it's not an enjoyable film, what you can call it, but you can appreciate it for its aesthetics and its cinematic techniques.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a film for selective taste. I think we've got to say that. But it really serves up noteworthy, I should say, disturbing stuff. It's the stuff of nightmares, isn't it, Dave?
It is, and this is going to be one of my favourite films of the year. I fell in love with this film. I saw it at the premiere at IMAX, which I think actually made this film stick to me even more. You felt like you were part of the film just because of how big the screen was in front of you. It made you feel like you wanted to go and have a shower after you'd watched the film, but I saw that as the film working. The performances here are just absolutely amazing. I compare this to films like Knit Ram and Van Diemen's Land, which Thomas Wright also acted in, but I think it's got the Joel Edgerton factor with this film. Joel, as a filmmaker, away from acting, has made some amazing films and written some amazing films. The Square is one of my favourite Australian films, and he did an amazing job with that film. I don't know, it's just he's one of those people where it doesn't matter if he's acting, directing, or writing. He always seems to be at the top of his game, and this is a disturbing film. A lot of people said that Knit Ram disturbed them. This film will disturb you as well, but I just see that as the power of the acting and the power of the filmmaking in front of you, that this is one of those stories. And like I said, you may feel dirty after you've watched it, but I think that's an indication that the film has worked.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is a pretty special piece of product. There's no question about it. I dare say the crowds aren't going to be massive, but the people who appreciate fine cinema will certainly appreciate The Stranger. Rated MA, 117 minutes. Score out of 10, Dave?
I'm giving it 10. This is one of my favourites of the year, and it'll take a very special film to make this not be my number one film of the year.
Peter?
Very good film. I think it will be a major contender at this year's Australian Academy Awards. And I gave it 8 out of 10.
Academy Awards. I think we're getting a little bit high horse here. You're talking about the Australian Film Awards, I presume.
The Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts. They are referred to as the Australian Academy Awards.
Yeah, I think every country. I think there's one Academy Awards, and the rest have got their own awards that are. Yes, I'm delighted we have our own awards, but it's kind of like the Ophir Awards in Israel, etc. It's terrific to win one, but they're not the academies.
Can I just ask Peter a question there, Alex? Peter, do you see that this could be an actual contender at the Academy Awards?
The American Academy Awards?
Yeah.
That's a hard question to answer. Possibly, Joel Edgerton's name could cause it to receive a nomination or two. Hard to tell because it will depend on promotion and publicity. Maybe.
Yeah, because it's going to be a Netflix film in America as well. So
I'd like to think it could be a contender, but I'm not sure. I'd love it to get a nomination. I think it'd be terrific. But what score out of 10 for you? Sorry, Peter, I didn't catch that.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, okay. I'm giving it an 8 as well. And what about you, Greg?
I'm going to go a bit lower than you because, as I said, I didn't find it a particularly enjoyable film to sit through. I appreciate it for its cinematography, but it's not a film for everybody, I don't think, as well. And I gave it 6.5.
You do realise a 6.5. Wow, that's a particularly low score, I thought, based on the movie. But
yeah, I just felt uncomfortable watching the whole film, and there's just something about it found a bit creepy and unsettling. And no, as I said, it's not a film I'm going to enjoy, and I don't think a lot of people will.
No, but isn't that the point? I mean, that's what,
possibly.
See, the other thing about this is often the American Academy Awards, Peter, the films that are nominated are not necessarily big films, are they? The ones that win awards are not necessarily populist films, but they're good films. They're great films. So, I mean, anyway, that's it'll be interesting to see what happens with it. Is there any other film that we can sort of say that we've seen in Australia in the last 2 or 3 years that's better than The Stranger? What do you think, Dave?